The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA Cup champions, ladies and gentlemen. I got to talk about this game because though it was a low-scoring game, and though when we get halfway through the third quarter, the Milwaukee Bucks basically had it all wrapped up, I really enjoyed myself, man. And I really do think that them winning this cup changes quite a bit for the Bucks. I think tomorrow I'm going to drop a video about my biggest criticisms about the NBA Cup because I do believe there's a lot that needs to be changed if Adam Silver / the NBA really wants this to be a staple that people care about. But I was going to do this in one video, but I watched this game, and I firmly do believe that the Bucks deserve their own video for this run that they recently went on. Now, going into the year, I was high on the Bucks. I thought they were one of the contending teams out east. For me, before the season started. Of course, it was the Boston Celtics, number one. They were head and shoulders above everybody. And then there was a tier two that was the newly looking Knicks. It was the 76ers, golly, look at that now. And it was the Milwaukee Bucks. But about a month or so into the season, I have fallen off that Milwaukee Bucks as a contender bandwagon because it started off really bad on both sides of the floor. Where Dame and Giannis didn't look like a cohesive unit. And then the defense, oh my God, the defense was still so very bad. One of the big things when they added Adrian Griffin last season, even though they had a successful record, they were one of the worst transition teams of basketball, and you saw that. They looked old, they looked washed, they brought in Doc Rivers, and things changed. But to start off this season, they were back to that bad transition defensive team. And then they went on that nice little run where they won, 9 in their last 10. They got up to one of, I think, like the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, and things started to look pretty good. And then they had a real tough battle. They went against the Boston Celtics. This is Chris Middleton's first game, and though they did end up losing, maybe I'm naive in this. I do believe in moral victories. I do believe in things like that. And they fought the Boston Celtics really hard, ended up losing that game. But the question was, can they continue the success that they had when they were going against those bad teams? Can they win a couple games against NBA playoff teams or teams that we see as contenders as well? And they go to this NBA Cup championship and they take the OKC Thunder, and majority of people across NBA fandom look at the Thunder as the team to beat in the Western Conference. And if you don't have them number one, the first you got them is number 2. And they went into this game, and I don't know if I've seen Doc coach a game this good. I can't lie to you. I've also been a Doc criticizer, man. You know what I'm saying? He's riding a lot on that one championship. But this time around, in this winner go home scenario, this win and get $500K game, I thought Doc Rivers did an amazing job. One of the things when I was talking about this before and the podcast that we uploaded was I thought OKC was going to have the advantage because they do a couple different things very well. They sell out completely on the star players, meaning that in their game plan is to prevent Giannis from having a superstar performance. They're going to try to prevent Damian Lillard from having a superstar performance. And if that means that Gary Trent ends up hitting 3 threes, so be it. If that means Brook Lopez hit 3 threes or Derrick Bird comes off the bench and hit 3 threes, so be it. We're going to try our best to neutralize the stars. Well, the reality was they didn't do either of that because Brook Lopez hit some big threes down the stretch in that third quarter when they were going in that run. Gary Trent, who basically didn't play in the first half, had a phenomenal second half of the game. Bobby Portis hit a 3. Derrick Bird, who I want to give his own little segment to in a minute here, they didn't execute anything that they normally would do defensively. And I want to remind you, compared to relative defensive rating, this OKC team is the best of all time, relative. And I don't think they executed a ton on the defensive scheme. Now, they did hold the Bucks to less than 100 points, so that's a successful thing. But I don't think they took away many things that they really intended on taking away. And I also think that the Bucks kind of put that pressure on. Like Giannis, as much as you want to sell out to prevent Giannis, that man is a freight train. I remember when Bron was in his early days in Cleveland, or his first stint when he left Cleveland in Miami, the big Bron criticizers would be like, I don't understand why this freak of nature, 6'8", that's 250 pounds, I don't know how many pounds he weighs, but that beast, why is that beast not just going to the rim time and time again? And as NBA fans, I had that, like, me in high school was like, bro, do you know how taxing it is to collide with bodies time and time again? Giannis is the exact thing that those people wanted when we were sitting at the lunch table in high school, where he is going to be pure force all of the time. And you will get the scenarios where he does end up setting, like in that game that I referred to earlier against the Boston Celtics, he did have a shot with a minute left that was a settled shot, right? But for the most part, he is anti-settled. And you kind of see some of this when Doc Rivers was mic'd up in the last game against the Atlanta Hawks. There was a moment where Giannis was extremely, extremely tired. And Doc Rivers is mic'd up saying, we need to get Giannis out. And he brought in, I think it might have been Bobby P off the bench. And one of the reasons Giannis is his freaking nature and he's team no settle, because they do a pretty damn good job of managing his stints where he's not going 12 straight minutes, a lot of cases, of just pure force. And this was something that Coach Bud did quite a bit earlier in his tenure with the Milwaukee Bucks as well, where we're going to play Giannis with his stretch. And in this stretch, he's going to be the damn best player in the world. He's going to sit on the bench and he's going to come back and be that. He did this in his game for 36 minutes. He ended up with 26 points, 19 rebounds, 10 assists, a triple-double in an NBA Cup game. And we still trying to figure out if the Cup actually matters, but I'm watching them celebrate right here. I think Giannis was just named the MVP. I can't see it being anybody else. And they raised that trophy as if it was Larry O'B, which is a good sign for the NBA. But I thought the Milwaukee Bucks had a phenomenal game plan in minimalizing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who going into this game has scored 30 points in 8 of 9 games, 25 and 13 straight games, or something ridiculous like that. I thought that Andre Jackson did a very good job of him early, but I want to give so many flowers to Derry Bird, AJ Green, and I'm sure that he woke a lot of people up. I talked about this on my podcast, not Numbers on the Board, but Small Ball with Kenny Beecham. You should tune in. It drops on Fridays. When I was talking about how much I like Derry Bird / AJ Green, because obviously he's one of the better snipers in basketball. In this one, he was 3 of 5 from 3, and one of the threes he hit in that corner, it was basically like an icebreaker for when it was over Isaiah Hartenstein. But one of the things I mentioned in that podcast, if you missed it, is people will look at a guy like Derry Bird because he's a white shooter and be like, that guy can't defend. I hope that y'all really paid attention of his defense against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander tonight. Because the Milwaukee Bucks have kind of shifted their scheme throughout the course of the season, but every time they shift the scheme, they always resort back to, we're going to play heavy drop against Brook Lopez, or with Brook Lopez. And this one, they played the heavy drop in the way Derry Bird, AJ Green navigated these screens and made it tough for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I pray that y'all was really paying attention to this, because I'm looking at this as a guy that already recognized that he was at least a positive defender. I'm looking at this like, oh my God, he gonna provide that 3-point shooting and he's gonna do this off the screens. Now maybe he really needed that 100K. I'm sorry, 500K. Insane. But he navigated those screens so very perfectly. Now, it does not help that OKC had a really, really poor shooting night, 5 of 32. But I think this is a wake-up call for this young OKC team who've been in a couple pressure situations. Of course, we talk about the playoffs in Game 6 versus the Dallas Mavericks, where they didn't play necessarily well and P.J. Washington took them home. I think they needed this type of performance or this type of game, national TV, championship game, for them to see and for Sam Presti to see. They lacking on that jump shooting, man. They really are. Not necessarily jump shooting, I'm sorry. They're lacking at that 3-point shooting. Because other than Isaiah Joe, who started this game for this exact reason, they don't have a lot of plus 3-point shooters. Now, this is also not a team that relies on it too heavily. Like, if you never watched the OKC Thunder and this was your first interaction with them, you would probably think that this is one of the high 3-point frequency teams. The reality is that's not really their identity, but they were trying to shoot through that slump, and eventually they were so much in a hole that they was trying to shoot through it. So their 5 of 32 is not really indicative of who they are as a team as far as the volume goes, but they're like, 19th in the league in percentage, and maybe this is Sam Presti wake up call, like, damn, we really need to get shooters, because they did their very best to isolate Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and make sure that he didn't get his off, but also pack the paint so nobody else, other than a little floater for Isaiah Hartenstein, who was phenomenal today, they pretty much neutralized everything. And that's why I said earlier that this is one of the best coach games I've seen from Doc Rivers. Now, I'm also probably being hyperbolic because this is a win-and-go-home game on national TV when there's really only one game we all can really focus on, but I thought that Doc Rivers did a very, very good job here. So the big question is, how much does it shift the momentum for the Milwaukee Bucks? Now, the Bucks have, during their stretch, again, the criticism that people had when they were playing very good is that they weren't really beating up on anybody good, right? So they beat the Raptors, they beat the Pistons, they beat the Rockets, which was a good win. The Rockets are obviously a really good team. They beat the Bulls, they beat the Pacers, they beat the Hornets, they beat the Miami Heat, they beat the Wizards, they beat the Pistons. Like, those, you know what I'm saying? They didn't go out there and beat 6 contenders, on the road to them having that great stretch. But during this cup, they went against the Atlanta Hawks, who beat them earlier, like a week or so before that. And there's varying degrees of the Atlanta Hawks, right? But I think we can agree that they're at least a competent team and project to be a playoff-worthy team. And then this one going against an NBA champion, or even though this game was closer than it probably should have been, beating the Orlando Magic without Paolo and Franz is a good win. And the question is, have they itched their way back into like, oh, this team can win the Eastern Conference? Their next game is Friday versus the Cavaliers, another dogfight against a contending team. And again, we're talking about December basketball, and it's hard to really gauge who a team is come April, May, and June based on December basketball. But I think this Friday game could really open up the gates for a lot of people to be back on the bandwagon, as if you don't think that about this game. Giannis continues to be as phenomenal as ever. I've been streaming every single morning. If you missed out on this channel, if you're awake in the morning, come watch. And one of the questions I got asked was, should the NBA Cup matter in the NBA MVP voting? And I said, I mean, I guess, like, if the NBA wants the NBA Cup to be as important, as impactful as they're trying to make it seem, then we have to look at it and say, hey, Giannis played head-to-head against Shea. These are two of the top 4 MVP candidates, 2 of the top 3. I think Luka's working his way into the top 3. I have, like, Luka maybe number 5 behind Tatum. Right now, if I had to put my hierarchy of MVP, I got to put Jokic 1, Giannis 2, Shea 3, and then Tatum, and then Luka just off today. But you have to look at this and be like, yeah, Giannis went head-to-head with Shea, who was also an MVP candidate. And not only did he beat his team, he gave them 26, 19, 10, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. Come on, man. And some of those blocks are like big momentum-shifting blocks. And I want to go into why the NBA Cup needs to be better as far as like the promotion and the way it's handled. But again, that's a different video. I got to tip my cap to the Milwaukee Bucks. They were great this entire run. And now Liam Roberts, is that his name? Liam Robbins? Liam Robbins has an extra $500,000 in his pocket. DeLon Wright, Ryan Rollins. Sheesh, Chris Middleton didn't even play. He said thank you. He was already on the max, but thank you. Shout out to the Bucks. This is a huge game on national TV, and my ears are peaked up again. I see it.